Thanks for coming on board today. Great to see you online. Tell us about yourself and about your business, please.
G'day, Milton. Yeah, thanks for having me. So, business here is known as Mckean McGregor. We're a livestock and property brand. We've been around since 1911, principally just on the livestock side of business. My sort of journey at the time of the business was that in year 11, I got dragged out of school midway through my exams because my dad ran the McGregor side of the business, which was known as Ralph H. McGregor at the time. And from there, I started my journey as a stock agent. And in 2007, my dad took a bit of a backseat and said, it's time for you to take over the reins. And I made an approach on these two lovely gents, Kevin and Peter Gallagher, who owned the Mckean side, and their father worked for Bill Mckean. And I made an acquisition of their business, which was a really good fit at the time. They had no succession planning. I wanted to grow and keep our business moving in the right direction. It was a great business father-son, but I had greater aspirations. And fortunately, we were able to set up and make the acquisition of W. Mckean & Co. at the time, and gave the Gallaghers a great outlet, and it gave me a little bit of scale in the business. So it just so happened that we brought the two names together of Mckean McGregor, of the two separate entities, but those two families worked together all the way back in 1911, hence why the establishment date of 1911. So that was sort of a company that was reborn, which was great. And so it started out with me as the principal of Mckean McGregor, and here I was with these three older gents, being my dad and the Gallaghers, and taking orders from three guys more or less. But as the business grew and evolved, I kept on bringing young blood in, and must have just got lucky with the talent identification, because those people are still with us today, and they're now partners of the business. And our team's recently grown to around 55 staff. We service principally clients on the livestock side around 100-kilometre radius of Bendigo, but it does extend on to larger pastoral clients up through northern New South Wales into southern Queensland. We do have a very far reach. We offer some bespoke products to our livestock clients. As we do our real estate clients, we started doing residential real estate 6 years ago. And with some of those old-fashioned values from, I guess, dealing with farmers and saying what you're going to do and being on time, being punctual, that sort of resonated with the property market in Bendigo, and we've had phenomenal growth in that area. Hence why we've gone from originally a two-man team now to 55 staff and still growing. And we love servicing the people of Bendigo with all their real estate needs, and that extends on with other arms of the business, with residential property management, commercial property management, commercial sales, residential sales, rural sales, and lifestyle sales. And yeah, those lifestyle sales are probably a real niche, because a lot of times we're dealing with retired farmers, so we understand the farmer very, very well, with those trusted relationships, which are generational relationships. There's some relationships in our business that have been 5 generations with the company, and that's something we're very proud of. But I think that's another thing that's resonated in the residential sales in real estate, that it's flowed on from those trusted relationships. And when you're connected, part of your business is connected with a farmer, I think other people outside of that just instantly make the connection that you can be trusted, because you just don't have those trusted relationships with farmers over generations if you're not doing the right thing. So hopefully that's not too long-winded of an explanation of the business, but that's who we are. But really our basic value set here at Mckean McGregor is we're just here to help people.
That's great. I mean, you've actually answered my next 3 questions, which is perfect. So you must have a premonition. So well done. That's perfect. Who'd be your ideal client customer now, apart from farmers?
Really, it's the people that are aligned with our values. That's where we deliver the best outcomes, when we're all aligned and we feel comfortable with each other. That's a big percentage of the population, but we're a service industry. We're an intermediary. We work as a middleman. That's purely what we are. On the livestock side, we're very much that trusted person, and we build up a really good rapport and relationships. Look, to give you an example, on that side, our ideal customer is someone that really wants to work with us on the livestock side. And that probably rings true with the Gallaghers, and especially my dad. Like, he has people calling to him, and he's turning 88 in May, that still come in and say good day to him and knock on his front door. And Dad says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, you called on me for 56 years, Kevin, and we absolutely loved our friendship, and our relationship went further than business. And we find we can only do that to you now. You're in retirement and you're at home," and they love to pop in and say good day. On the real estate side, it's aligned to that too. We get the best results and outcomes for people we align our values to, and they get us and we get them, and we just want to get a really good outcome, and that seems to work best, and it makes coming to work at Mckean McGregor fun and something people look forward to because they know what they do every day. It's not a job; it's something they love to do.
Do you just have the one office at the moment, Glenn?
Yeah, we do. So it's a large office. We keep growing into the space. It's just under 1,000 square metres. It was a bespoke building that my wife and I did for the business around about 7 years ago. We finally finished the build and the project. It's out of town, so it's different. All other real estate offices in Bendigo are in the CBD. Before we started doing real estate, I actually had a chat to a couple of prominent agents in Bendigo and just asked them the question around the digital space and how many properties do you actually sell out of the window from passing traffic? And both of them vaguely scratched their head around 8 years ago and said, I don't know, we might sell 1 or 2 a year. So there, I didn't feel like we had a need to be in the CBD. So we built a large office space as more or less the hub with a vision to keep growing spokes in the wheel and generate the hub. So we're actually out of town and it works really well for our clients. There's 54 car parks. We've got plenty of parking. Our staff all live on this side of town and we're only 3 minutes out of the CBD. So, but to answer your question, we only have one office, but it's a large office which we keep growing and adding spokes in the wheel to the business.
Right. Glenn, what's the biggest challenge you're facing in the business right now?
Biggest challenge now is where the economy stands. We're first time ever on the real estate side in Bendigo, we've seen a correction in the market. We have seen spikes and booms in the property market in Bendigo before, but normally when the market slows, it's only days on market that extends. We don't generally see a price correction. The price correction will just go on a linear line, so it doesn't move. Bendigo is a fantastic spot to be, obviously founded on the gold rush, and we're well positioned that we see that, or the council talks, and we can see the growth that they're talking about, another 50,000 people growing in population over the next 15 to 20 years. We need to house those people somewhere. There's great industry. Around about 90% of the workforce in Bendigo is 1 and 2 man business operations. So it's like its own economic bubble. So people spend the money in the town with other businesses and it seems to flow around. But that's our biggest challenge right now, is that we have seen prices drop off from the COVID boom, where we've seen a boom across Australia in property that I don't think in our lifetime we may see again. We did see capital growth in between sort of 22 to 25% in that time in Bendigo very, very quickly. And with that sudden spike, we've seen a correction, which is the first time ever. So it's about clients understanding where their property sits in the market. So they're actually in the market, not on the market. And it's a big adjustment. It's their principal place of residence, their last tax-free haven in Australia. And they're getting told by us that their property's not worth what it was 12 months ago. Right. So that is a big challenge at the moment.
But Glenn, don't you think that's because there was such rapid growth, mainly as it brought on or speeded up by the pandemic? And yet we've never seen a rapid growth in rural areas like 20-25% ever. So it's really only a correction at the time. But given that the growth of Bendigo, given you're on the rail line, given what they're doing now with rail fares, easy access, but more importantly, people work from home. That's the new norm now. And I'm seeing in our region that people are only in the office 1 or 2, plus it'll be 3 days a week. And that seems to be totally acceptable, which means living regionally is very easy.
Well, that's where we did see a lot of our growth come from, people relocating from metro to have the tree change, have some space around them they never experienced before. I think COVID certainly highlighted the fact of the importance of your own principal place of residence, having a backyard and having some space around them. And Bendigo for value for money certainly offered that someone could come up and buy 10 acres, beautiful 4-bedroom home, and they're in there for 1 to 1.5 million. Obviously, with 400 billions being printed through the pandemic and the stimulus and the growth, that certainly sparked it. But on the positive, if you just think about basic calculations, okay, we experienced 25% capital growth. Now we're experiencing that pulling back of 10 to 15% shrinking in the market. Well, we're still 10 to 15% in front of prices of 3-4 years ago. So
exactly, yeah,
it's your glass half full or half empty sort of thing. But yeah, of course, you always want the most you can. It's just human nature.
Bendigo's grown business-wise, food, culture, even art gallery led. It's been amazing for Bendigo, I would have thought. But I remember growing up there was nowhere decent to eat apart from pubs or Chinese food. Now you've got amazing restaurants, bars, right through, and also great accommodation. That's got to be
Yeah,
good
well,
for town.
the accommodation part's interesting. We've been born and bred in Bendigo. People say it's a good place to stay, but I've never stayed in a motel in Bendigo, so don't really know. I've got to rely on word of mouth of that. But I'm a big foodie, and the food here is exceptional. And there's been so many great restaurants open over the last decade. It's completely changed. And what you said, Milton, spot on. There's only a few Chinese restaurants, a place called Clogs, which is still a classic place, and a few pubs. But yeah, to have some really good food and great hospitality, you needed to go to Melbourne. But that's all here now. Culturally, Bendigo's a great place to be. There's so much on offer. Look, I like to talk about the key indicators too around property, and you talk about unemployment at record low levels, occupancy rates at record low levels. Like, they're the two key drivers to property prices, and they're still really low. Obviously, the RBA, with the uncertainty in interest rates and where things are going, the negativity, cost of living, all those things are having an impact on those. But yeah, look, I wouldn't be surprised at all that we don't see any further corrections, and then it will follow more of a normalised Bendigo property market and just go on that linear line, settle down, and our days on market are blown out, but they might come back in because it's a great place to live. So it's never going to change. It's going to keep growing.
What about supply of stock? Glenn, I know some other areas having trouble getting stock to sell.
All the way through the pandemic and to now, like, to give you an example, obviously we're only a 6-year-old business in the property market. We've certainly gone to a level with some of those values I spoke about earlier. And I'm not one to say where we sit in the market, but we're really at the pointy end as far as stock and volumes go, which is a credit to our team. And yeah, the last 6 months we've sold more property than we ever have, which is that's for the first half of the financial year. So and our brand and our word and the way we go about it, we're very, very fortunate that we've never been in that position, that stock levels for us have been a challenge.
Yeah.
So our sales team are very lucky, but they're also great people that have grown the business and got up to the level for that word of mouth.
Yeah. Glenn, what's one or two actions you've taken because of the pandemic, and how do they work?
Actions, we look, to be honest, everyone was talking about working from home and everything else. We always given our staff great autonomy. That was part of our business. Look, we do little things here at Mckean McGregor that are very different. We lease a house down on the coast for our staff to go and work from. If they need a chance to get some headspace, they can go and stay there if they wish. We really like to look after our people because they look after us. So we didn't change a lot. It was probably around the pandemic and the nervousness around, geez, how are we going to sell property? We can't get people through property. How do we know if they're coming from Melbourne or where they're from? And we simply just worked around the guidelines and worked with the guidelines. And we had a fair bit of flexibility in regional opposed to where Metro was. And we quickly adapted and changed. It was probably just that re-education of what you do so well, Milton, with your coaching side of your business. Was just coaching our staff again to say, it's okay, we've been through one lockdown, we knew what to do, it worked well for us, we only need to adopt and put those principles back in place and those actions back in place, and off we go. So there was a small moment of panic, but we're very fortunate with the leaders in the business that we didn't panic and had a look outside the box and had a pretty clear picture of what we needed to do and just help guide our staff to say, this is what we need to do, let's do it really well. And we're obviously also a very conservative business too, as far as our spending goes. So we knew we had plenty of fuel in the tank to support our team and look after our team. And we knew we'd come out the other side of this, and we had to be ready to go on the other side of it too. And we never want to lose our good people.
No, so critical. Glenn, what's the biggest learning you've had since being a business owner?
Probably the biggest one for me is people. That was my personal biggest challenge. And I still got to say, after 33 years of in the business, I'm not great at it. Our CEO is a brilliant people's person. He come from an area where he had to end up managing over 600 people before he joined us. He had some great coaching from the brand he worked for, which he absolutely loved that. He only come to us for family reasons because he was never home, because where he was working had a lot of expectations on travel. And I've learnt so much from Todd Brown, our CEO, around people. And a lot of times in business, you've got to have a difficult conversation with a staff member at times.
Oh, yeah.
And he's always made those conversations positive about what the business needed for that particular person and the reasons why, and just making sure they're aligned, because they just need that reinforcement or guidance at times. That's all they're looking for is really guidance, and sometimes that's lacking. And that was my biggest challenge in business, from growing from a father-son business, just learning how to be a really good agent and generate the top line of the business, but never taught how to manage and look after your staff and look after your people. And that's a constant learning for me. And one, I just absolutely, any information or anyone I can talk to that's a great people manager, I just love talking to learn how to make our people great people.
Right. Have you done any disc profiles of your team?
We have indeed, yeah. We've engaged. We're constantly doing training and professional development as much as we can, but there's a balance there of you need to operate a business and they need to be out there generating income, but they also love that time to do some professional development. So we have done some disc profiling to really understand the needs of where everyone sits in the business, but it also extends to our clients too, of understanding clients' needs and what they want.
Absolutely. And knowing how to treat them, of course, and how to read that. What are some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome in your journey in the business?
People that I've touched on, but to go on a new one, it was just the growth phase. It just kept growing. Like our business kept doubling in size every year. So I was really just managing that growth with cash flows.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always tricky. The growth's fantastic, but the cash flow and also maintaining the culture of the business is really tough. But you obviously manage it incredibly well, because you see the results now. Well,
thanks to our CEO, but yeah, from coming from early days where you employ someone because they can fulfill a role and do it very well and meet the needs of their position description, but now it's just not that. It's more importantly fitting the culture and making sure they fit into the team. I don't know what the next phase of Mckean McGregor will be like as we continue to grow them. That may change the cultural fit as you potentially get past 60 or 80 staff. I don't know what the threshold is, but then people might move into their silos where they feel comfortable with similar personalities and work well in there is my thought, but I don't know if it'll unfold that way or not.
Yeah, it's still concentration on the individual though, as you mentioned before. That's so critical. Yeah, letting them know they're part of the team, but also what their goals are too. And
yeah, probably some of the most fulfilling moments have been staff members that we didn't think they were going to quite make it, and we've gone, hang on, no, the Mckean McGregor way is we don't play with anyone's careers. And if we engage someone, we're going to do absolutely everything we can to make it work. And to see those people now just absolute stars of our business, because we were able to sit back, identify that they were having an issue. The issue wasn't so much them, the issue was more us, and not spending the time with those people to allow them to blossom and do what they need to do. So we've always given our staff great freedom of choice and allowed them to bring in new ideas and do things their way. And we've got a couple of stars in our business that were really down on them, and then we realised we were the problem, not them, and work with them, and they're absolute superstars, and we'll be lost without those people now.
Fantastic. What have you learned about yourself during this journey?
That's really good, Milton, because in the busy world of business, you need to stop and have time to reflect and celebrate some of your successes. And I've got to say, I'm not a great one at that. Right. Probably for me, it's just keep on developing my skills with dealing with people. I think the human factor, especially in our business where we're an intermediary, is so important. So I keep trying to develop and work on those skills. And I think the ethos here of just helping people is so important, because if we do the right thing by our customer and create a great client experience, we don't need to worry about the numbers so much. They look after themselves. Mm-hmm. And probably another thing outside of me, but one of my early learnings were, if a great person walks through your door and you don't have a position for them, you put them on regardless.
Fine room, yeah.
They end up paying their way and really valuating to the business, and they're so hard to get. They're like once in a lifetime people that come through your door. So we never lose that opportunity. But for me, it's just about growing and nurturing and developing my people skills. And I think it's going to be so important now. I see my kids at home, they get restricted for an hour on a device, on a computer. It's more, my wife's a Nazi than me, but I think it's great because that next generation and the generation after, if they can communicate and talk to people, they're going to be set apart.
You said you're not good with people, but from what I know of you, Glenn, you're very much a high I in the disc valuation, I would have thought. And
yeah, I was off the chart when I did that.
Yep, not surprised at all. And so as a result, you should be great with people. And I've always seen that with you too.
Well, I'm good with people, but they're probably an area sometimes you need that firm conversation.
Yeah,
I'm always a problem solver and working to solve their problems and work with them.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just need that little bit of push and guidance in the right direction.
That's where a bit of D comes in, which will really help you too, which I assume your CEO's got.
No, he hasn't. The CEO and I are very much aligned. Actually, the guy that we bring in a little work who's done a lot of disc profiling with us says it's an unusual combination, but our other director and key decision maker in the business, he is classified as a soaring eagle, and he's a very high. Yeah.
And you need that in a growing business, though. You need a combination, which is great. How do you find your inspiration, each day? What inspires you?
Look, I've always been extremely driven, whether it's been with work or sport, and it's always been extreme for me. That's probably why I did many upon many Ironman triathlons. I was never a natural endurance athlete, but I loved the process of setting the plan, working towards some goals, fulfilling those goals, and I suppose it's a buzz you get at the end when you fulfill those goals. So I've got a list of goals that not many people know about that sits in my wallet, and they're not just not my goals right now. They're goals historically that I've ticked off, and it's actually good when you have that time to stop and reflect. And occasionally you'll find me in the car and I'll pull my wallet out and I'll look back on those and go, well, it's something to be pretty proud of with these goals along the journey that I've ticked off, but also just trying to refocus. And now it's a different type of goal because it involves 55 families within the business that they have kids, they have husbands, they have wives. Yeah. It's a lot of responsibility. So I've always been known as I suppose, trying to keep it as humble as I can, because I like that, but I've always been known as a bit of a thought leader and doing things outside the box and different to the norm.
Right.
And that is somewhere where I still have goals for those, but now we need to be commercially smart around ideas that get implemented in the business because of the scale of the business and the size where it's at. So I can't do some of my high risk ideas that I used to be able to do in the early days, that sometimes they come off and other times they don't.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've gone off a tangent there. Sorry, Milton.
No. It's fascinating because I do a lot of work with CEOs in the CEO Institute. And, when I ask the question about business plans, yeah, sure, they've all done business plans, some good, bad, they understand because that's their role. But when I ask about their personal goals, less than 5% have even written down any personal goals or even discussed it with their partners or their life partner. So that's really, it always shocks me that these dynamic people don't have personal goals or haven't bothered to write it down, let alone tell anybody about them.
I just ticked 50 the other day, Milton. So I do have a personal goal, and I've always been massive on health, well-being and fitness. Obviously, if you don't have your health, you're no good to anyone, especially yourself. I like to live a full life outside of there. I've had some health challenges due to probably triathlons and the extreme of endurance sport. But so health and well-being is very big. And 3 years ago, I fulfilled one of my goals of buying our retirement property up on the beach in northern New South Wales. And every time I go and get to spend some time there on holidays, I just keep gravitating towards there. So I'm really grappling at the moment with the thought of semi-retirement, because this has been my family, this has been my home, these have been all my kids have grown here. But now I'm negotiating with my wife to say, well, we need to make this move sooner rather than later, to spend a little bit more time there, but not to move away from the business. So my goals right now is to really fit in an area where I can still have a great impact on the business, but also fulfill some of those personal goals.
Right.
So I've always been very driven around personal goals and always thought about the big rocks. And making sure I fit them into my life and fit all the small ones in there. So
Fantastic.
might be a bit different to your normal CEOs. And
Yeah, I mean,
that did it to me, that it was a selfish sport and you had to be very selfish.
yeah,
I still come back to being selfish for myself and having that time for myself.
yeah, no, fantastic. Do you have any favourite quotes or sayings that keep you focused?
Oh, geez. I've got a few on my phone, but I can't actually.
That's okay. So it's a
recall,
question. A question without notice.
I could say some that sit in front of mine, but I think they're probably not quite appropriate.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. What would you say to anyone thinking of going into business?
I'm excited for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they look back in 10 years, they'd probably say, why the hell did they do it? But the fulfillment, the joy you get from working for yourself, able to make your own decisions, you're really in charge of your own destiny. Look, to be honest, if I had my time over again, I'd do it exactly the same. So it's just not Mckean McGregor. I'm a founder of an ag tech startup business, and that was a real challenge, and that really tested me financially. But the bigger the challenge, when you do climb the Everest and you get to the other side, it's even more fulfilling. So you just got to have a great level of passion. It's got to be what they love, and then it's not a job.
But
you also need some great mentors. You need some very good people beside you. Like I was so fortunate to have my dad. I was very fortunate to have the Gallaghers, both worldly people that have been in the industry for a long while. I also sounded out and got to know a guy called Brian Rodwell very, very well. Terrific gentleman. He grew a business of a livestock agency to 25 branches across Australia. He sold out in the end, not for the money. He sold out at a lesser price to someone that was going to look after his people. That's what his people meant to him. But to have mentors like those gentlemen in my life, decision at that time was never hard. You just sound them out, and it would have been something they had to decide on or make a call on in their lifetime. And they might have got it wrong, they might have got it right, but they could certainly give you some good advice around it.
If you started the business again, what would you do differently?
I'd probably move faster on finding that key overarching person of the business. I'd potentially move quicker than others to get a CEO, but it still wasn't soon enough. Still wasn't soon enough because I wasn't there for my people. I was there for the clients and trying to generate the top line to pay the bills and also pay the wages. But I wasn't there enough for the people. But if I could take a step back and spend that time with the people and allow them to grow and blossom and generate the income for the business, that's what I'd do differently. So if I had to be the income driver, as you do with a startup business, I'd be looking to really reinvest in the business with a general manager, a CEO, someone to really look after the people and be there for the people.
Right. What is the best advice you'd give to your 18-year-old self?
I think I've got a book there written for my 50-year-old self now. I wouldn't change a lot.
Yep.
I'd follow those. The only thing I felt like I may have missed out on to fast track where I've got to today is maybe taking an opportunity to go and work for a corporate in the early days when I had those opportunities presented to me as an 18-year-old, when I was fortunate there was plenty of companies asking me to go and work for them. I think that would have been a great opportunity to broaden my network and work with other people and see how other businesses did the same thing but slightly different. I think just being a sponge and being in a bigger environment or a bigger world would be great. But in saying that, that mightn't have been necessary. I could have done like one of our great leaders did here at our office, and he just picked up the phone and developed his own network and started to go and shadow other people that were competitors in other areas. And I gave him the autonomy to do that, but his learning curve was very, very steep. And he's by far now one of the highest performing agents in Australia. And that's only because of what he did and took it on his own bat to pick up the phone and get going. So that might be a couple of things I might do just to steepen my learning curve, broaden my horizons, and build my network quicker.
And finally, Glenn, what does the future look like? And what do you see as the main challenges moving forward for the industry, for you personally, and for the business?
Everyone, the industry as a whole, sees technology being a large challenge, that technology may take over on transacting. I think the human factor is still massive, and when you're talking about emotional decisions around very large transactions for people, either being their house or their commercial property or even their livestock, I see we play a really important role, but it's all about those people skills and building relationships.
Yeah.
So the big challenge will be that generational change where they all hide behind devices and picking those great people to be able to have the conversations they need to have.
Yeah.
I've seen it so many times that if technology was involved and you're talking of just a buyer and a seller and no intermediary, a lot of times it ends in tears. They just can't get an outcome because they don't know how to remove the emotion.
I think it's also been shown that people like the experience, and it's very hard to have an experience just online. And that's where, and also people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And that's the crux of so much in business, and especially sales.
Yeah.
So
I'd love to see, as it moves forward, a bit more of a balance in regulation and red tape and bureaucrats just talking, not so much backing things off, or they don't have a role, or they're not suited to business. So they definitely are, and we definitely need regulators and we need people in those roles. But I'd love them to be the bigger person and go and talk to industry experts to make better decisions for themselves too. We do get bogged down a lot as a business, as every business does, with meeting regulatory requirements. And to give you an example, on a livestock selling day, back in the early days, I'd do all the livestock processing myself and all the admin and all the data at their back end. And now we'd need to do the same that I could do in 20 minutes. We need around 3 FTEs to cover it all. Yeah. So there needs to be a balance there. Yeah. And some are very, very good and come and talk to industry, and that's when they make their best decisions. Yeah. So I'd love everything to be a lot more open.
Glenn, that's fantastic. Thanks so much for your time today. Is there anything finally you want to add, or about the business or the future, or what you've done already is fantastic. Thank you.
Look, really, really proud of that. Probably just a question for you, Milton. Like, you've obviously been on a great journey yourself, and what's your feeling when you got so much value to add about retirement? How do you get your head around potentially thinking about retiring?
Yeah, I think that's changed. That I think that there's no need to retire. That I think that now people will keep working to a certain level or have involvement well past the historic retirement date. I know personally, I don't even want to think about retiring. In between the business I've run and organised, I've had some time off. And all I found was that I did the same thing. Yes, I travelled more, but I did the same thing, just took more time to do it. And I love the interaction of business. And I'm meeting new people daily, and I'm learning daily too. And I don't want to step back from that. You can only play so much golf or go surfing or running and holidaying, but without that challenge, I think, in the past, people reach 65 and die because they had nothing to live for and they had no other. That's certainly changed now. But I think with especially your business and my business especially, I can keep doing it forever. Oh yeah, I'll scale down. I bring it back to a few days a week or less, but I don't want to give it up. And I think there's more and more people like that now. And also a mature age workforce in the past had trouble getting jobs or changing careers. That's changed too, because that experience is much more valued now, and people are much healthier lifestyles. And, that experience, that wealth of experience is invaluable.
Yeah, I love the worldliness of sitting down and maybe talking to an 80-year-old gent or lady, and they've been on a journey. Like, once a baby and once a child and a teenager, and they've gone through everything you can. But if you just sit down and take the time and listen, it's amazing what you can learn, and they've still got so much value to add. That's good advice.
To finally answer your question though, that succession planning is critical. And you grew up with that and you've gone through it yourself, from the Gallaghers and from your father. So that's something obviously you've thought of it a lot. I'm sure your CEO has too, for the business too. But it doesn't mean you have to step aside totally. You might change your role, but you can still stay involved.
Yeah, we could have a twofold here. We could obviously set up the business for a sale, or what we're trying to do, and especially with myself, who was 100% equity holder and have been selling down to key people in our business, that I want them to be a part of the journey. I'd like to see the business around for another 110 years. That's
great.
And obviously the people we brought in, they seem to have very aligned values and goals around that too.
Fantastic. Okay, Glenn, thank you so much for your time.
Good on you, Milton. Cheers.
Really appreciate it.